Hello and welcome to Eye on Gauteng with me, Fifi Peters. Now, October was declared Transport Month 11 years ago to raise awareness of the vital role safe, affordable and reliable transport plays in a country's economy. Let's take a look at some of the progress made by the Gauteng City Region. With thousands of people flocking into Gauteng on a daily basis for work and other services, transport infrastructure is top priority. In June this year, the provincial government endorsed the establishment of a single transport authority that is affordable, accessible, sustainable and customer-centered.
Transport is so key to an economy of any country. It can kill an economy or it can enhance and grow the economy. It also impacts on the well-being of people, working people as well as business people who have to move from one point to the other. So we are investing quite significantly in the modernization of public transport in Gauteng province. But fragmentation has been a big issue. Although we have buses, a bus rapid transit system being rolled out in our metros, which is huge investment, and then the expansion of the Gautrain, which we're also working on. And then we also have the metro rail. The critical issue is for us has been there's no proper integrated system that would offer affordable, reliable transport services in an integrated way to everybody, regardless of where they are located in Gauteng. So the Transport Authority will help us coordinate all transport services in Gauteng, the different modes of transport, from taxis to buses, to including to metro rail and the Gautrain, the Single Transport Authority. Our vision is to ensure that soon we have a single ticket to start with. You can buy a ticket which you use from one mode to the other without having to buy another ticket and another ticket. That's our vision, to travel across Gauteng in a way that is affordable, in a way that's also safe. So that's critical, but we're also looking at the fact that transport also has a direct impact on the economy. The transport services, a lot of our people live very far from where they live. We are investing in public transport to also ensure that people, as we build new houses, people live closer to where they work. But without a coordinated public transport system, and that's what the authority will help us do. We can put lots of money into all this infrastructure, but there'll be chaos and there'll be duplications, and then other, particularly peripheral regions, may not benefit, whereas those regions, the metros, that are the core of our urban system, may be the only ones we are looking after. We have the responsibility to look after the people of Gauteng, regardless of where they are located.
The authority will address inefficiencies in the public transport system and strengthen public confidence, which is expected to lead to more people using public transport in the province. The move is part of Gauteng government's 25-year plan for transport and spatial development. During this October's Transport Month campaign, the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport advocated its sustainable mobility initiatives.
We are extremely concerned about energy sources, the damage to the environment, and Gauteng is an industrial area. It is a major contributor to carbon emissions, not just in the country but on the African continent, and we owe it to future generations to really make sure that we begin to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So I think the future is really about electronic cars. There's talk of driverless cars, the solar energy, and of course looking at CNG and gas as means of propelling vehicles. More and more we're going to be moving in the direction both in terms of private vehicles. We've got a very successful pilot projects in Tshwane and in Ekurhuleni, where taxis have been retrofitted so they can use normal petrol and also gas. Initially, a lot of hesitation, a lot of reluctance. People were uncertain and suspicious, saying, well, what if there's an accident? Will this gas tank explode? Or will it create more damage, more fatalities? But it has worked exceptionally well. They have found that on average they are saving 30% in terms of their fuel cost if they use gas. And in terms of the actual performance, the taxi, the minibus taxi, is slightly slower, but it moves just as well. There's absolutely no problem. There's no car jerking or anything. It moves exceptionally smoothly, and they're very, very satisfied. So we've got a number of gas stations in Gauteng. I think we really need to see how we can expand and roll out more of those gas stations. I've been to other parts of the world. I've been to Italy, for example. Most of the vehicles are on gas. Iran, many of the vehicles are moving on gas. Pakistan is the same thing. So I think it's cheaper, it's better for the environment, it's cost effective, and that's really the way that we should be going.
Earlier this year in Gauteng's Central Corridor, the city of Johannesburg's previous administration launched a new metro bus fleet consisting of dual-fuel buses that use a combination of diesel and gas. Aside from lower carbon emissions, these public buses will cut down on fuel expenditure as diesel costs double that of gas. As per government's mandate to create employment and upskill, Busmark, a factory based in Johannesburg, was awarded the tender to perform the final assembly of the buses.
We're South Africans, and we own the company, and we employ engineers, artisans that will be able to make the buses. The critical part of how we get into the partnership in terms of this project specifically, which is Metro Bus, the criteria was local content, to say that anything that you do must be coming out from local seats, steel, interior, and all of that. We have that capability and capacity within Busmark. We do our own fiberglass, we do our own steel components, we do our own seats, all our that goes into the bus. And then the other criteria was then empowerment. I have been owning 49% of this business for quite some time, and quite recently I now control the business, and I run and I'm actively involved in the business. So I'm the front line in terms of what happens in the business, and that's another criteria that was meaningful. And then the last one was to say that it was to say that how many jobs can you be able to create into the market. And I'm very passionate about job creation, and jobs is all about people. You employ one person, that person supports a family of 5, and that's what it all is all about, So not working for me, working for all these employees.
We've got 175 procured buses plus 15 extra to help us in the city. But the business we're running really needs about 400 buses. So this is the first batch of buses that we're buying. Hopefully in the new administration, we will continue with the refleeting to meet the needs of the people of Johannesburg. The one thing is, even with the fleet of over 400 that we've got, it's not covering every area of the city. So we need to extend our services to other outlying areas like the Orange Farm, the Tembisas, the Cosmos cities, which are areas which have historically not been adequately serviced. And that's where we'll be taking these buses. But the first point of departure for Metro Bus is to strengthen the existing routes, which have for a number of months and possibly years have been under service because the buses that we had were breaking down every so often.
This week, newly elected Mayor of Johannesburg, Herman Mashaba, took his first trip on the city's bus rapid transport system, Rea Vaya. He aimed to get a better understanding of the challenges commuters face on a daily basis.
The transport system has to play one of our greatest roles in ensuring that we can drive this economy of Johannesburg. The assignment given to the executives of the city of Johannesburg is to drive the economy to give us a minimum of 5% growth, because that's the only way we can reverse the current unemployment. For as long as Johannesburg does not experience a minimum of 5% growth, we're going to be failing our people.
Over 50,000 passengers use the Rea Vaya daily, highlighting the need for safe, reliable and accessible infrastructure.
I have been in this office for about 6 weeks. What I have noticed is that Yes, a whole lot has been done as far as transport is concerned, but there's still a whole lot of challenges also that are facing our people. I would like to see a transport that where people will be able to confidently leave their cars at home and get onto a public transport to get to wherever they want to get to. But because our public transport has not reached the level that is actually trustworthy to the motorists especially, so people are still using their cars and thereby creating all the traffic congestions in the city. That is why in my few weeks in the organization, I have taken interest in meeting the bus companies that are running area via for us. I've taken it upon myself to meet with the executive management of the Metro Bus to find out what their challenges are. I've taken it upon myself to meet the 3 major federations of the taxi industry, that is Santaco, JGNT and Top 6. So I have met them to find out what their challenges are, because with constant engagement and trying to meet each other halfway, we can be able to provide a transport that is reliable for the people.
In Tshwane, the Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development partnered with Stats SA to tap into its rich experience on data management. This is an effort to move closer to becoming a modern and smart organization when it comes to the delivery of infrastructure.
The critical things that are emerging out of this is how do we make data work for us, and the insistence of MEC Mamabolo to get hold of us as Stats SA to look at both program and project approaches have ignited very, very clear pathways to using macro data such as the GDP to look back into program and projects and see what can be triggered, because has resolved the problem of looking at headline numbers such as growth is 2%, 3%, negative 1.3%, but looking at what are the supply and use tables, what are the specific products, in which areas will they have an impact. But not only that of supply and use tables, but the social accounting matrix. And in ourselves, as I say, use these tools to look at the quality of the data. Yet, the benefits and spin-offs of looking at the quality of the data using these tools impact on the broadest of society. And this is what we are already trying to look at from ourselves as an organization.
The mischief that we are trying to solve here is the fact that the Department of Infrastructure Development manages a very huge budget on behalf of our client departments for this financial year, about 7 billion. And we are deeply concerned as the Department of Infrastructure Development and of course Gauteng government that this money that we are getting from the public purse should be used efficiently and effectively. By that we mean we need to have a capability at an institutional level to be able to see where these resources are going to and what impact are they making on improving the living conditions of our people.
During the apartheid regime, non-whites were restricted to areas far away from economic prospects and life-supporting amenities such as healthcare and education. As part of Gauteng provincial government's transformation, modernization and reindustrialization strategy, spatial reconfiguration is already underway to redress the injustices of the past. Here's a snippet of the bold plan.
Government is working with state-owned enterprises and the private sector to ensure that a new built environment and inclusive spatial landscape emerges across the Gauteng City Region. This is being done through the public transport infrastructure development and the creation of new, integrated and sustainable human settlements and post-apartheid cities that are more connected, livable, smart and green. Bold new plans for the development of mega cities are a combination of spatial transformation, managed and shared resources with the ability to attract investment, quality of living for all, long-term planning and good governance are underway. New urban districts are a combination of living spaces, business, logistics, schools, clinics, and recreational facilities that are supported by a public transport infrastructure that is safe, affordable, reliable, and efficient. Partnerships between government and the private sector is bearing fruit in the development of infrastructure around these megacities.
After the break, we look at Gauteng's positioning for business, investment, and trade opportunities. Stay tuned. The Gauteng provincial government spends more than 47 billion rand on procurement annually. At this month's open tender seminar, Premier David Makura stated the importance of removing corruption from the public procurement system. The CNBC Africa team was there to find out more.
In making a point about why it is important that governments open their processes up for public probity and public participation, Professor Francis E. Rook has the following to say, and I quote, "Nothing could be more axiomatic to democracy than the principle of exposing the processes of government to relentless public criticism and scrutiny," close quote. In other words, transparency and accountability are important to save public officials and civil servants from themselves, from the capture by private or corporate interests.
The open tender process was pioneered by the Gauteng provincial government in 2014 to ensure that government procurement is free from corruption and they achieved their development objectives. Finance MEC Barbara Creasy announced that next year, the Gauteng Provincial Treasury will introduce legislation to make the open tender system a law.
In November last year, the Gauteng Provincial Government took a decision to pilot an open tender process. And really what this is all about is it's about trying to restore public confidence in the way in which the provincial government selects those with whom it's going to do business. There is a concern amongst the public at large, and that the best service provider is not necessarily chosen, or if they are chosen, that they are chosen at an inflated price. And I think that we want to be able to assure the public that in Gauteng, when the provincial government does business, we are going to be doing it with a competent service provider. And obviously we're going to be concerned that we are using the taxpayers' money in the most efficient way possible. What we're trying to make sure is, firstly, that the way in which tenders are adjudicated and evaluated is absolutely in terms of the supply chain provisions of the Public Finance Management Act. We're also opening up the adjudication process, the actual process when people have put in their bids. We now publish online who has bid, how much they have tendered to do this work for. And really the idea is, by allowing people to have more information about the process, to be able to assure them that the process by which we are selecting contractors is fair, it's open and transparent to public scrutiny, and obviously we're going to get the best person to do the job for the best possible price. One of the reasons why this is very important for the public and the community is not just that they can have greater confidence in government procurement processes, but also that hopefully this will help to stamp out processes of conflict around the allocation and awarding of tenders. I think it's that two-sided role that Treasury has to play as a custodian of public sector finances on the one hand, but also as making sure that the way in which government procures and spends benefits all our citizens, not just a particular category of enterprise.
In the first 6 months of the current financial year, with the province-wide rollout of the open tender process, 93% of spend has been on procurement from black-owned companies. 3.5 billion rand, or 13% of the provincial first quarter spend, was allocated to goods and services procured from township entrepreneurs, highlighting government's vast buying power as a critical lever to promote economic inclusion and transformation.
What we are able to demonstrate is that over the past 2 years, we have moved from 9%. We started in the first financial year, we were at 9%, now we are at 15%, and we're confident that by the end of this financial year, we should be at 18%. So the 18%, the goal is 30% by the end of our term of office with the township enterprises, township economy.
Today, Gauteng contributes 35% to South Africa's GDP, 42% of South Africa's industrial output, and 63% to South Africa's exports. Gauteng is the 5th biggest economy in Africa, contributing between 8 and 10% to Africa's GDP. Last week, the Gauteng Investment Centre, the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, and the Department of Trade and Industry launched the Trade and Invest Africa Gauteng Roadshow. It aims to assist companies looking for opportunities throughout the African continent by working closely with governments and businesses.
The rationale for creating Trade Invest Africa was that we needed a dedicated unit within the DTI that is going to support South African business that is looking for opportunities on the rest of the African continent. So it supports spending from, facilitating access to capital for projects or for exports, as well as facilitating access to markets and other non-financial support around matchmaking and finding partnerships on the continent. In the last 4 months, one of the biggest achievements was taking the very first mission by black industrialists to the Nigerian market. And quite a few contracts are under negotiation as a result. We had a number of the companies were actually from the Gauteng province. We've also undertaken missions to Ghana. We've undertaken a mission to Madagascar. We're busy now also creating a portal for business matchmaking, which we are optimistic that is going to be on stream latest by the first quarter of next year, so that our South African business can find partners on the rest of the continent and we can create the connections and the partnerships.
It also caters for those that are already operating on the continent and are facing trade challenges.
The interest has been very high. I think what we're quite encouraged by is that the sense we're getting and the information we've been given is that this is a unit and an idea for whose time has come. It's about time that we had a dedicated unit that really looks into leveraging partnerships on the African continent, and making sure that we invest on the continent of South Africa and we begin to trade more with our partners on the continent.
Intra-Africa trade is sitting at about 14%, and it has been stuck for the last 15 years or so. I mean, even more than 15 years, sorry. And one of the reasons is that there is a huge infrastructure backlog, which is estimated at about $1 trillion US. It's a lot of money. There is political instability in some of the countries. There is acts of terrorism, and all these things makes our work extremely difficult. So we were exchanging ideas today on how best can we take this process forward. We might not be able to change certain things because we don't have power to change those things, like bringing peace in other countries. But we can do our level best to engage with the leadership and citizens of those countries, to encourage them to work together, to show them the bright side and the importance of having a sustainable continent, the importance of democracy, and the importance of everlasting peace. And we will never be tired. We will never relent. It's our duty. We cannot sit idle and celebrate the fact that we've got democracy in South Africa and we've got relative stability and peace with all the challenges that we have. Because if we don't work with our neighbors and our brothers and sisters in the continent, some of the problems that they have will spill over to South Africa. So we have no choice but an obligation to work very hard and insist on peace, democracy and stability in the continent.
Well, that's it for this month's episode, but do tweet your comments and queries to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag #IOnGauteng410. Until next time, from me, Fifi Peters, and the team, it's goodbye.